What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to episode 15 of my Eastside Hockey Manager Early Access Let's Play here with the Leafs. And today we are going to be kicking off Season 2 of our campaign. If you missed last episode, it was the draft, the entry draft. If you want to go catch that, definitely recommend it. As always, there's a playlist link to the series down in the description. So anyway, today, as I mentioned, we're going to be kind of starting our second year, our second season. I'm pretty excited to get into it, but in my excitement, I didn't actually talk about kind of what's been going on in the league last episode, because of course we got knocked out the playoffs. But as you can see here, the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup with the LA Kings finishing in second. They also won the regular season. That series was a 4-3 win in favour of the Lightning. Looking at the records as well here, you can see that we actually ended up getting the most goals of all the teams last year. I believe some of these records are done from the start of the game and others are done kind of throughout the history of the NHL. So there's some here like Gretzky's record for the Oilers where he got 92 goals in a season, for example, whereas stuff like Bernier getting most wins. I'm not sure, maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, looking elsewhere here, just so you guys can see, if we look at goals, you can see a Kessel, record breaker, 79 goals for the season, places in 4th in the all-time record NHL singular season goal scorer, so that was kind of impressive. Looking at the awards here, you can see the Art Ross Trophy was won by Kessel, with JVR getting runner-up for us, so that was pretty cool. Obviously there's a variety of trophies here. I honestly don't know what the different awards are, so if someone wants to explain these to me, but as you can see, a fair few of our players are appearing quite a lot here. I assume some of these are basically positional, but Kessel dominating them, and JVR there as well was kind of nice. I could go through all of these, but I think you guys kind of get the idea. If there's any here that I should cover all the time, let me know. You can see here All-Star MVP went to Rick Nash. Congrats, Rick. So anyway, that's kind of what happened last year, just in kind of brief terms. The Lightnings won the Stanley Cup. They actually finished 7th and went through as a wild card in our division, or in our conference rather. So that was kind of, I guess, lucky for them, but they made the most of it and they won their series. But anyway, we're now going to be focusing on this year. We're actually going to be starting off with a game against the Sens. Of course, they did finish 16th in the division and in the conference last year, so they've got something to prove perhaps. But of course, we made some changes. We brought in some players. Things happened. And yeah, we have certainly made some changes. So looking at the roster here, you'll notice that a lot of the young prospects who I drafted aren't in the side. I guess that's where we should start. So if we look at our all contracted kind of youngsters, you can see here, I decided to send McDavid back to the Otters for at least the start of the year. We'll see how he gets on at junior level. He's not old enough to play for the Marlies in the AHL, but if he was to kind of really step things up for the Otters, I may well bring him straight into the kind of first team and start playing him in the NHL. But we've sent him there to develop. Also done the same with Ryan Pylon, who I've now added a face to. If you guys would like to know how to install individual faces, let me know. You know, if you want to add faces to your face pack and stuff for youngsters you draft who don't have faces, that's something I can look to do, because I had to do that myself with Pylon there. Other players, well, Lawson Krause, you can see here, we sent him back to Kingston to develop a little bit more, so hopefully he'll do a job there. And last but not least, I've decided to send Nylander to the Marlies for at least the start of the year, and we'll see how he develops. Maybe look to call him back up depending on how he gets on. You can see here that he also has a new face. I decided to update his face because he looked like a Barbie doll or something, and it was a little bit creepy. So he has now a brand new face that looks somewhat more acceptable. Anyway, that's the changes we did with the big youngsters, the ones that are really kind of worth caring about. But we did make some big transactions. Looking at it here, here you can see the trades that we made, and there were a few trades. You'll notice here that I've actually dumped a lot of my late picks, basically all my 5th, 6th and 7th round picks for the next 5 years. With the Blackhawks. The reason for me doing that is because the Blackhawks are over budget, or were over budget at the end of the first season, and I wanted to capitalise on that. I wanted to try and get some of their best players in for kind of peanuts. And whilst in real life, occasionally you will get decent picks in the 5th, 6th and 7th round, and maybe 1 or 2 players turn out to be absolute worldies, the general consensus when I asked on Twitter was that in EAHM terms at least, they're kind of worthless. So I decided to give them away in order to really strengthen the team. But we'll talk about a few of these other deals first. So I decided to trade away Maxim Lazarev here, who has 3rd line potential, the Russian, and my 6th round pick this coming year for the Stars' 1st round pick in 2016. So we have 1 1st round pick for this year, so that's kind of nice. You can also see we decided to trade James Reimer away to the Flyers, got rid of our goalkeeper, and we brought in this guy, Shen, who I've since moved on to the Panthers. In the end, I decided that I didn't need Reimer anymore. That's because I brought in a player on a free, who I'll talk about in a second because they're not shown on the trades. But as a result, I brought in Shen. I wasn't that happy with his wages and he wasn't as good as I was expecting him to be. So as a result, we traded him for Blake Parlett, who's on 600 grand a week and looks like a pretty nicely rounded defensive player. And the other player we brought in was Sean Thornton, who's quite old, but I think he's going to be a good player to have playing for the Marlies, add a bit of kind of maturity and I guess experience in the Marlies side. So we ended up saving a little bit of money there. In terms of compared to what Reimer's wage, I think it works out around the same. I can't say it's the best bit of business by me, but I tried to make the most of a bad situation. Anyway, looking at the other kind of trade here, this was the big one. This was for Hjalmarsson. I don't know. Hjalmarsson. We'll go with it. But as you can see, Nicholas here, really good defensive man, going to be in our top 2. He looks incredible. He's only 28, fairly low salary as well. Looking at it here, you can see we traded him for Christopher Gibson, who's a good young goalkeeper prospect, but probably will never play in our first team. Tom Eriksson, who we traded, who's 5th/6th man potential defensiveman, or defenseman, who he's okay, but I mean, Hjalmarsson really adds a lot more than Eriksson could give us, and also the rights to James Cordell, who of course we got very late in this year's draft, as well as our 7th round picks for the next 5 years. It's quite a lot to give away in terms of, I guess, a backup D-man, a young prospect goalkeeper and a young prospect forward. But really, this guy looks like a really solid defender, and I really like how him and Cam Fowler are going to complement one another. This guy's fairly brave, good strength, not the most aggressive, but he can hit, and he can, well, he can't hit actually, but he's good at checking, and he's quite an assertive defender for the most part. And I think he's going to complement Cam Fowler really well, so I'm really happy to get him in. He'll be starting in our first defensive line. The other trade we made was another fairly big one. This one involved just a few prospects. Granberg here, who's okay, but I don't think it's going to be worth too much. Tom Nilsson, very similar mould of player, as well as our 5th and 6th round picks for the next 5 years. And the player we got in return for him was Andrew Shaw, who is 24, looks like a really good, solid centre for us. Going to be an incredible second line centre. We got him from the Blackhawks. Really like the look of this guy. You can see last year he didn't actually do that well for them, but I'm hoping he's really going to step things up this year and perhaps with a slightly more competent team around him, show what he's made of. So they're the players that we drafted in. As I mentioned, there were a few frees that we got in. If we look at the players in, these players were Eriksson, who was contracted to us. I let his contract expire, then he filed for a contract extension of 1 year. I can't remember the exact terminology because it's an NHL thing where if a player's contract isn't extended, they can basically appeal to have it kind of forcibly extended by the franchise. And as a result of that, I decided to trade him away. But the other players we got in Jason Megner here, who's just a good solid backup forward on a fairly low salary. And the other player was Jake Allen, who's going to be a really solid backup goaltender for us. You can see here, played last year at the Chicago's, played 52 games for them. So he is a very good player. And looking at his overall attributes, he looks like he's going to be really solid for us. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he might do as kind of our backup goalkeeper when we need to call upon him. Other than that, I think I've covered all the other transfers and all the other kind of transactions we made. So that's what's been going on there. In terms of other little bits and pieces, I did a bit of a shake-up with my coaching staff. So we kept a few of the players like Horacek. I guess this guy's Rick St. Croix. I'm assuming that's French-Canadian. He looks okay. And then Hamry, we kept... in fact, no, Hamry was a new acquisition. But basically, the general gist of things is that I really shaped up my coaching team. So we got in Hamry here, who's got a really good condition coaching with some really solid mentals for a coach. We brought in John McLean, who is a good defensive and forwardman coach. We're going to be training him on the forward, I think, yeah, offensive skill and shooting skill. Murray is another really good kind of well-rounded, I guess, coach you could say, and he's going to be training skating, shooting and offensive skill. And we also have Don Hay here, who's a really good defenseman coach, and we've got him covering the defensive skill and skating as well. So we've got a lot better kind of coaching staff now. That's something that I didn't really touch too much at the start of last year, just because when we getting grips to the game, I was kind of trying to bed myself into the game, kind of managing different things and slowly taking on more responsibility. And I'm now in a situation where after 1 year, I feel pretty confident and kind of comfortable, I guess, pretty much doing everything that I need to do. So anyway, that's what's been going on there. I don't think there's too much more to tell you guys about, really. I would show you my tactics at this point. You may be aware, if you've been playing this game, that sometimes there's a weird issue where you hit continue, or rather you tab out of one thing. So to give you an example here, if I was to go to the roster, that's not going to work, is it? I'm trying to think of an example. But basically, if you go to a set screen, like practice here, then you click off without hitting OK or cancel, it kind of locks you out. It hasn't done that because I'm before a match, but essentially, for whatever reason, the tactics button is disabled before my game, so I can't actually show you the lines. I'm going to do that immediately as we get into the game. But just one other little thing that I want to talk about is the fact that Nathan Horton, I'm trying to get rid of. His salary is just far too high for what he offers to the team. Fairly old, he's on a long contract, and I'm trying to get rid of him. So that's a little bit about what's going on there. Anyway, I'm going to submit my team, and then I'm going to really quickly take you to the home tactics screen so you can see our lines here. So our first choice defensive line is Fowler, who I've accidentally just taken off, who of course has been at the team a while, joined us last year. He was the first player we traded for, and he had a really solid first year. And then alongside him I'm going to have Humalson, the Swede. So these two players, two very fast skaters on the ice. I think they're going to be a really nice defensive pair. Behind them, slightly more kind of inexperienced defence line. You can see here we have Stuart Percy, who's 22, who developed a little bit last year, but you know, he's been a good player for us. And then alongside him, we are going to be going with Gardner, who of course really showed himself to be a player with some decent ability last year. He played 78 games for us and he had a pretty good points total of 47, so I'm hoping for more from him. This year demoted to second line, but still very good. And then our third defensive pair is Polak, who of course is just an absolute titan on the ice, and also Fane, who is a good player who we traded for last year. However, his salary is a little bit large for what he offers, and if there was a good trade there, he's a player who I might be willing to part with. Anyway, looking at our forward line, it's unchanged from last year. We go with JVR out on the left. In the centre, we go with Bozak at centre. On the right, we're going to go with Phil Kessel, who of course just broke all kinds of goal scoring records this last year. Behind him, Kadri is being moved out onto the left. He did a good job at centre last year, but of course with the addition of Shaw this year, I think he's a better suited centre for us, so we've made that minor change there. And then out on the right, we do currently have Horton, however that might change. Elsewhere, the second and third line I'm going to cover in a little bit more detail, I think, in the next episode, because there's still a few trades going on. In terms of team tactics, I've not changed a load. You guys will be aware that I said about the fact I was going to stop using barrage shooting because it seemed just a little bit too good at the moment in the current early access match engine. So we are now only on heavy. As you can see, looking at our lines here, our first line is a really kind of well balanced line with the exception of toughness. Our second line is again pretty well balanced, a little bit tougher, as fast and as offensive, but not quite got the skill defensive capabilities of our other line. Third line is kind of the opposite. It's a really solid defensive line with some really decent toughness, and our fourth line is pretty weak and is really just going to be our energy line when need be. So that's kind of what's been going on at our team. I don't think there was any tactical changes to confirm there. Today, we're just going to get straight into this game. We're playing the Sens. It's our first game of the second season. I'm excited to see what we can do here. And hopefully we can get off to a good start as we have an opportunity. And well, JVR just continues from where he left off last time. First goal of the season, coming in 25 seconds. I didn't cover any of our pre-season kind of exhibition game results, but just so you guys know, we won every single one. We won some of them really convincingly, albeit with me choosing it, again, like last year, to play my strongest team where possible. So that was pretty darn pleasing. But yeah, that's kind of what's been going on. Anyway, we're halfway through the second here. 30 minutes have gone on the clock. It's still only 1-0. And it's been a tame affair. Not many goals either way, which compared to last year, which of course was just goal central, feels a little bit strange. Anyway, for this last kind of period, we are going to switch to the extended extra dramatic highlights. Hopefully see some decent saves. Hopefully see a few goals as well, although Komarov there put in the penalty box for Slash, and he's been a naughty boy. And we've got to now deal with the next 2 minutes being a man down, which is not ideal. But I'm hoping that we can see this out, although the Sens with an attack. And we deal with it there, but there is now a minute left on the penalty clock. And they're on the attack again. Hopefully we can do something here and just hold on, although the Sens on the attack. That is a decent save by Bernier, however. And now 10 minutes left on the clock. A low-scoring game, something that we did not see many of last year. I'm hoping now we can just see out this game. The Sens on the attack and they score. Michalek for them to make it 1-1. And, well, we've not been as convincing as I'd like. We'll take a look at the stats real quick. 2 minutes left on the clock. Looking at it, we have been the better team. We've had just over 50 shots in total. They've had 35. So we've had a little bit more, but looking at it here, you can see that the Sens have won a lot more board plays. They've been a little bit tougher than us, I guess. We have won slightly more face-offs, and our pass completion is a little bit better. However, we've given up quite a lot of penalty minutes, and it's not been a kind of clear-cut game. They've been in charge as much as we've been in charge. It's been a 50-50, but I'm hoping now that we can make something happen here. A minute and a half left of the third. We did have possession of the puck, but we've given it away. And now the Sens on the attack. Bernier with a nice save. Of course, last year we kind of set a really high standard for ourselves, I guess, in terms of finishing top of the conference and top of our own division. It's kind of set a bar high now for these coming years. The board's expectations are to reach the playoffs. That's kind of where I see us finishing again. I kind of see this year as a bit of a development year. We've got players like McDavid, who of course need time to develop at the Otters, who may well end up in the first team. Players like Nylander as well. We'll kind of monitor their development very closely, maybe, you know, give them a few run-outs in the first team. And we have a chance here. Can we get it in? We can't. There's 7 seconds left. That is going to be all she wrote. And we're going to overtime. But yeah, I don't really know what my expectations are for the year. If you guys want to leave your kind of, I want to say prediction perhaps of where I'll finish, but maybe just where you'd expect with my current setup to finish. I don't feel like we've lost a lot of strength since last year. A lot of the trades that we did involve getting rid of either backup players or getting rid of kind of future draft picks, which I don't see as too valuable in order to strengthen our second line. And all in all, I'm pretty happy with the changes we've made, and I do feel as if we are stronger than last year as a result. Anyway, looking at it here, 1 minute left to the overtime, we have a chance, and that is a great save there by Anderson in goal for the Sens. But we do still have possession of the puck. Another chance. Kessel can not quite direct it goalwards, and they will just dump the puck there, the Sens. Although we are on the attack here. Can we make something happen? We can't, and it's end-to-end stuff here in the overtime. 20 seconds left for a team to make something happen. Can we be the team to do it? We have possession of the puck. We're in their zone. They're just trying to dump it crazily, and it is going to go to a shootout. Not a comfortable way to start the season. We guarantee ourselves a point, but a win here against our rivals would be huge. They're going to open up the shootout, and that is a great save by Bernier. Now can Fowler work some magic for us? He can't. Anderson for them making a fine save, and now Ryan to go forward for them, and he misses too. Well, Bernier with a great save, and we score. So now all the pressure on Michalek. Already got 1 goal this game. Can he get the one that the Sens need? He can't. We will get a win to start our season. Not as convincing as I'd like by any means, but it's done. We've got the 2 points. I guess that's what matters. We'll just take a quick look at the team report here so you guys can see the squad kind of as a whole. As I mentioned, a lot of these players are already playing in our team, but in terms of prospects, Connor McDavid back at the Otters, looking forward to seeing how he gets on. Lawson Kruse from Kingston, looking forward to seeing how he'll get on there. Ryan Pylon, a player who we drafted, I don't want to say late, he was a 10th pick in the first round, but he looks like a very good defenseman. So I'm intrigued and kind of keen to see how he develops. I'd very much like to start getting him in the team sooner rather than later. We seem to have a lot of prospects in the defenseman kind of area. You know, you've got players like Percy, Gardner, Fowler, who isn't exactly old at 23, and even Humalson, who is 28 but still has his best years ahead of him, I guess. I'm excited to see how they get on. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. If there's any questions you have, any comments with regards to this series, leave them down in the comments. I do enjoy reading your comments and getting back to them. If you have enjoyed this episode, of course, smash the like button. If this is the first video of mine you're watching, subscribe for more EHM videos and also FM videos. And yeah, that's sort of everything from me, guys. So other than that, it is me, Jack, and I will join you guys for episode 15 in a bit. I'm out.